welcome back to my Storytime kitchen. In this series, I will be taking you behind the real-life stories that inspired the short romantic fiction and recipes in my storybooks. Today, we are going to be preparing the Just Friends Fries recipe, which is inspired by the time I met Aaron. This story kind of starts where a lot of modern-day romances start online, and it happened after a really bad breakup that I had with the guy who inspired the I Knew You Were Truffle story recipe, and I was just in a kind of like weird place. I remember I am working in a different field now, but at the time I was working at the communications department at my college. I was a college assistant and communications major myself, and I was working at the marketing communications kind of like department of my school. And it was a super good job, but you know, anybody who works in an office for 8 hours a day knows that it can kind of get sort of lonely. And that's kind of like the space that I was in. Like, after I broke up with him, I was like, oh, I'm in this office for 8 hours a day. Like, I'm kind of lonely. Like, you know, I'm just missing this guy. And so, just being in front of a computer for 8 hours, what do? You go online. And I just so happened to find kind of like a singles kind of personal group board forum thing. And I posted one random day. I feel like lonely. Like, I just went through this insane breakup with this guy that I think may have been one of the loves of my life, like a soulmate of mine. And I was kind of asking the question in this post, like, is there anybody else out there who has gone through this experience where you've met somebody who you felt like was the love of your life and you just lost them and now you're by yourself again? And I think that I was just kind of looking to connect with somebody who was like me at the time, and I thought I did when I got one fateful reply from a guy who we will call Aaron for the purposes of this video to protect his privacy, because even though, as you will see in this story, he does not turn out to be that great of a guy. So I would say maybe 1 or 2 hours after I post this kind of like question to the chat board, has anybody ever gone through a bad breakup and felt, you know, like they're alone and they have to start their life over again? Aaron responds to me and he's kind of like super sympathetic. He's like, oh my god, like, yes, like, I've been through this exact feeling. I miss the feeling of being with someone and, you know, just having that connection and having someone to share life with, and, you know, having that person in your life to talk to about your thoughts and feelings. And I was like, oh my god, like, oh my gosh, you know exactly how I feel, like, you know my heart. And I spend probably the next 5 or 6 days messaging Aaron and talking to Aaron about everything under the sun, not just relationships, but life and our jobs and what's going on in the world. And we kind of really form a bond almost. And this is weird for me because I'm a writer, but I'm not super into like online or like digital relationships at all. Like, but I feel like during this particular period, what it was about for me is just having that sense of companionship again. And I think in hindsight, that's the real reason why I posted. I was just like, I wanted to meet someone who was going through the same thing as me so I wouldn't have to go through what I was going through alone. And I feel like I found that in Aaron. You know, even if it was just texting each other or emailing, as we were emailing each other like paragraphs and paragraphs, like 3 or 4 paragraphs of like just talking and like I'm a big cerebral connection kind of person. I definitely am the kind of person who can feel a connection, like even if it's just cerebral. And that's kind of how it was in the beginning. I was like, okay, like this guy can go back and forth with me about really intellectual things, and it's not just related to breakups. It's about, you know, life. And at the end of, I would say, the week that I posted that question on the singles message board, he asked me out on a date. Aaron asked me out, and I was just really kind of like, I didn't post what I posted with the intentions of finding a date, but it was just so funny to me that like that's kind of what happened. And at the end of the week, I was just like, okay, well, I mean, well, sure, like, you're amazing, like, you know, you can talk to me about anything under the sun, and we're going through the same thing, and maybe this is fate. Like, you know, I don't meet people online, I don't do that. Like, I think, like, for me, I feel like online romances are just too planned, And for me, it's just like it's never been my thing, but I just so happened to get along with someone who asked me out, so I was like, yes, I'm gonna go. And so he takes me out to this place that's in Hell's Kitchen, ironically. That's when we meet each other face to face for the first time, and I didn't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting him to be like this, like, really nice guy. Like, he was just like his personality, and I don't know if how many of you guys out there have met your current partners or met friends or met people that in your life through online kind of connections. But this guy, like, the way that he spoke to me online was like the way that he was in person. Like, he was just like the nicest guy through email and the nicest guy in person. Like, it was really cool talking to him in person. I was just like, oh, like, this is great. Like, this is awesome, you know? And he was a little older. I didn't mind that. And right away I kind of could tell he was like a professional guy. He told me that he worked in finance. He was kind of vague about it, which I didn't question because, you know, it's not like everybody wants to tell you a whole autobiography about themselves when they meet you anyway. So it was cool enough for me just knowing that he worked in finance, and he seemed to be like a nice, cool, you know, in general, educated, sane guy. And throughout, kind of like, we had dinner first and drinks at this place called Mr. Biggs, and it kind of came across that way, you know? He was just like the coolest guy I could just talk to. I wouldn't say until, like, things didn't get really weird at all until maybe the second or third date. So we had the first date at Mr. Biggs, which went great. It was amazing. And then we had another date where we kind of, I forgot where we went, but we went to another kind of like local place. I want to say it was in Hell's Kitchen, but I don't remember. It was someplace in downtown Manhattan. And then our third date was when things started to quote unquote heat up. And by heat up, I mean, like, you know, when you're dating, and I'm in my 20s now, so I feel like I can say this. It's kind of weird saying this on the internet, but, like, you know, I feel like it's a part of dating and it's a fact of life. If you like someone, you want to take things to the next level. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is kind of where it was going at that point. It was a few weeks into us talking, and it was a few dates in, and I was like, okay, this guy's a really great guy, and I was kind of sort of, I hate the term rebound because I hate anything that trivializes romance. Like, don't trivialize romance, but there is a term called rebound that I believe that I was looking for at this time, and I you know, because I just had a really bad breakup with this guy, so I feel like I was looking for a rebound, and I was like, you know what, this is the perfect chance. Like, Aaron is my chance. And so I feel like at the last maybe fourth or fifth date, I was like, he was driving me home. This guy, Aaron, was a perfect gentleman. He would always drive me home after our dates. And at the time, I was living in Flatbush, Brooklyn, by Brooklyn College. And I was living with a screenwriter who was actually a painter as well. And he had like his kind of artwork, like paintings and stuff, like all over the walls of our apartment. And I was kind of like, me being a writer and an artist myself, I was kind of like trying to play it smooth with Aaron, which is so funny to think about, like, now that I, like, in hindsight, like, I was trying to court him in a way, but I was kind of like, hey, you know, my roommate's a painter, and he makes all these, like, wonderful, unique artworks. Do you want to, you know, go up to my apartment and, like, check out the art? Check out the art? Check out the paintings? Yeah, so that was basically my invitation to Aaron, and you know what? Aaron shot me down. He was like, you know, no, like, I don't want to go upstairs, like, I don't want to go up to your apartment, like, I don't want to see the paintings. And I was just like, what? Like, it just didn't register in my mind, like, and, like, it's not like I'm being conceited or anything, or, like, I think I'm, like, you know what I mean, like, this hot chick, like, you know what I mean, that, like, he was supposed to go upstairs with me. It was more of a thing that was, like, I genuinely didn't understand based on how the chemistry was. Like, we had such good chemistry, and, he kind of, like, is, like, shirking back and, like, being, like, super, like, almost emotional. And I'm just, like, I remember, like, and now I feel dumb as shit, like, kind of, like, looking back at it, like, what is this guy hiding? Like, but now, I guess, because I've been through the experience, it's like, no, he's hiding something, duh. Like, you know, so, he takes the opportunity at the end of our, again, brief love affair, I would say, like, 2 weeks or so, to let me know that he is, in fact, a married man. He's a married man. And not only is he a married man, he's a married man with children. Yes, children, plural. Not one, but two. Two kids. And a wife. And, obviously this is very surprising to me. I mean, at the time I was just like, cool, dude. Cool, you know? I mean, no, actually, I wasn't cool with it at all. I was actually really pissed. I was really pissed. I cut off contact with him. I was just like, there's nothing I can do with you that's going to make sense. Like, this is going absolutely nowhere. This is going worse than nowhere. We could hurt somebody if we keep seeing each other like this. I was inspired by the sort of magic of me and Aaron's first date at Mr. Biggs to create the Just Friends Fries recipe. And I was further inspired by what ended up happening toward the end of me and Aaron's courtship to write the Just Friends Fries short story. I was really kind of fascinated by the idea of me as a young woman kind of meeting this older man who seemingly had everything, but, you know, like, kind of like the American dream. He had everything, but only on the surface, and he still wasn't kind of happy with these material things that he had. I found that very interesting. Just the fact that he had replied to my original post on the message board saying that, just like me, he missed love in his life, but on paper, he was supposed to have already had, like, the ultimate love, like marriage, right? And this was something that just stuck in my mind, and I felt like I had to write about it. So that's where the story came from. And if you can check out my book, Bittersweet Breakups, in the link, you can read the fictional story I wrote based off of what ended up happening between me and Aaron, and get the how to cook instructions for the Just Friends Fries recipe, which was inspired by the food at Mr. Biggs. Please subscribe for more story times and recipes, and until next time, enjoy your food and fiction.